teach us on this holy day. Thank you so much for being here. For all you do. Thank you. We really are grateful. We're going to come sit and listen.
Hey, Rabbi, Ron got into a fight. Click. That was the entirety of the call I received right around midnight as I anxiously awaited the return of Birthright participants from a fun, maybe too fun, night out in the Jerusalem Shuk. I had already returned to the hotel, having escorted 2 students who had panic attacks in the Shuk's tight alleys. The night was not going well, and my thoughts raced through all of the ways things could get worse. Oh, an important piece of context. Ron was not a student, but rather the Israeli Torah educator leading the group. Birthright is a 10-day free trip to Israel that provides Jewish youth aged 18 to 26 the opportunity to engage deeply with their identity, heritage, people, and Jewish home. Birthright is often the most accessible way to travel to Israel. The trip also has a notorious reputation for being, much to the chagrin of staff, a really, really good time. On one hand, Birthright takes young Jews to visit meaningful sites of Jewish story and history, like Theodore Herzl's tomb and the Kotel. On the other hand, the trip sends college students to a foreign country where the drinking age is 18 and provides the free time to take advantage. Birthright is critiqued for being content light, but heralded for its bold mandate. The trip often eschews nuance in favor of providing a singular message. That message, though unnuanced, is nonetheless valuable. The Jewish people are individually part of a greater whole, and that they have a responsibility to their people, regardless of their religiosity or country of origin. During our high holiday season, we engage in a process called Cheshbon HaNefesh, the accounting of the soul. On Rosh Hashanah, the book of life lies open before God, and on Yom Kippur, it is sealed. Who shall live, who shall die? While God records, we account. We are meant to take this season for deep personal introspection. In the spirit of teshuvah, atonement, we examine our relationships and make restitution. We take responsibility for ourselves and, through teshuvah, our community. The word teshuvah, literally translated, means return. The implication being that each Yom Kippur, our souls can return to a state of purity, even as we have nicked and bruised them throughout the year. This accounting process is difficult. Sometimes we have blind spots to our own failings. Sometimes we are not ready to account for the joys and sorrows of our lives. This is why our soulful accounting is key to Rosh Hashanah. Cheshbon HaNefesh is a process. It is ongoing. Teshuvah, according to our tradition, has a deadline, Yom Kippur. Cheshbon HaNefesh has a season. A few days before I received the concerning call about Ron in the Shuk, I stood in front of all 80 of our students on Birthright to read them the Riot Act. Owing to a really good deal on bottomless wine at a Tel Aviv bar, the previous evening had resulted in not only individual transgressions, but also a lack of collective responsibility and accountability amongst the group. Students had engaged in dangerous behaviors, misrepresenting both themselves and their community. Their souls were nicked and bruised thoroughly. So I stood in front of the group, looking out over a sea of sunglasses being worn indoors. I am not these students' parents, nor am I, frankly, a disciplinarian. Rabbis like to say yes, not no. I could kick offenders off the trip, but I probably would have had to send about a dozen students home, maybe more. The community would be fractured. Rather, I spoke to them using the voice of tradition. I taught our students the Talmudic axiom, Kol Yisrael aravim zeh bezeh, that all of Israel is responsible, one for the other. Collective responsibility for all of Judaism and for all of the Jewish people. I wanted to call our students in. I wanted to show our students what accountability and responsibility meant for our people, but the words wouldn't be enough. I believe fundamentally that learning is the core of any strong Jewish community. In order for Judaism and Jews to develop, we must teach how to access our tradition and to bring others to accept responsibility for the growth of Judaism. Part of what I love about being a rabbi at Hillel is that every single moment in college is an educative experience. From the second that a student drops their bags off in a dorm to the moment they walk across the graduation stage, every moment is a learning moment. That learning happens just as often in the classroom as it does in the fraternity party. And frankly, sometimes the lessons at the party are more important than those of the classroom. Experience is our best teacher. We take students on birthright because even the most jaded student who disdains classroom learning will feel a powerful connection, knowing that the stories of the patriarchs and matriarchs, the story of the kingdoms of Israel, the story of the destruction of the temples, the development of the Mishnah and Zohar, the establishment of the state of Israel, they happened here, where their feet are firmly planted. We want to provide students the freedom to choose Judaism for themselves, but they will never do so without understanding it and holding it close with their own hands. Educator and social critic Paulo Freire writes about how changing people's hearts comes from changing people's approach to learning and education. He deplores what he calls the banking system of education, where information is deposited into students' heads, which becomes a tool for the powerful to withdraw from, thus alienating people from their humanity. Freire explains that the true power of education is to name the world, to describe it as it is, and if our expectations do not align with the name we give, then we are obligated to make change. This process for Freire occurs when learning happens in community, with a free-flowing exchange of knowledge, not when the flow of information is purely one-sided. Jewish tradition finds itself on both sides of this equation. The first generation of composers of the Talmud are known as the Tanaim. The word Tana in Aramaic means repetition. The name comes from the method of education. Rows were set up in a Beit Midrash, a study hall, with strong students in the front and weak students in the back. The rabbinic educator in the front of the room would speak at a normal speaking volume, and a Tana would stand next to him, repeating what he said so the back of the room could hear. The ideal Tana was not a thinker. They were good at memorizing and repeating. Deposit, withdrawal, no responsibility. On the other hand, Judaism prioritizes learning in community, an inherently experiential act. The Talmud describes an ideal learning relationship as iron sharpening iron. Only through argumentation, experimentation, and messy, lived relationships can people truly learn. There is even a rabbinic saying that when two people learn together, God's presence dwells among them. So what do we prioritize in our students' learning? Do we prioritize rote information of our tradition like the Tanaim, depositing knowledge into their brains? Or do we teach for change and growth, hoping that God's presence dwells amongst our students as they collaborate to name the world? In order to build a Jewish community with learning as the cornerstone, we have to teach accountability, personal responsibility, the ability to take ownership of tradition, of self, of identity, and of the future. The stakes are high. Our young Jews are experiencing otherness for the first time in this country. And yet how many generations look at the next lamenting, well, I did more than they did for my bar or bat mitzvah. There are so many lonely Jews out there because they do not share in the collective responsibility for our people, not through any fault of their own, but simply because they were never shown how. we can call them in. The stakes are high. One of the key stops during Birthright is a visit to Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial Museum. Outside of the children's memorial dedicated to the child victims of the Holocaust is another smaller memorial dedicated to one of the righteous Gentiles who supported the Jewish people in our desperate times. Janusz Korczak was a Polish educator. He ran orphanages, and though not Jewish himself, he ran a Jewish orphanage. He dedicated his life to centering children in education rather than the banking methodology. Korczak's approach is now a cornerstone of early childhood education called play-based learning, popular around the world, including here at the Margot School. Play teaches students to engage with the world on their own terms, in community, and affirms a sense of self. It is experiential education at its finest. Janusz Korczak was incredibly popular in Poland, a celebrity in the way only a really great educator can be. And to the point, his celebrity went to the point that though he harbored Jewish youth in his orphanage, the Polish government convinced the Nazis to spare his life. Korczak did not take the offer. His children needed someone to ensure that they could be children, even in the darkest times. Korczak moved into the Warsaw Ghetto and took care of his children. He boarded the trains with his children. And today, he, a non-Jew, is the only individual name etched in stone at Treblinka, where he was murdered for protecting the Jewish children in his charge. Our teachers matter because they give us the room to experience and take responsibility. We never forget our teachers like Janusz Korczak. For Judaism to thrive, we must all be both teacher and learner. The main obligation of Passover is for a parent to teach their children. In the Talmud, we read that one is supposed to set up an engaging Seder table with walnuts, ancient fidget toys, and sing songs that allows the children to have fun. Passover is a teaching holiday not only because a child should learn the story, but because the process of putting together a Seder, answering questions, carving out room for learning is an educative experience for the parents, too. Judaism retains its shape and form because we constantly engage in this back and forth process. We learn as parents, and we impart those lessons on our children, and then our children begin the cycle anew. What if every Jewish experience was like that? In that room full of tired eyes, I told the students, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'Zeh. Later that day, they saw the memorial dedicated to the victims of the Nova Massacre. They traveled to Yerucham, Miami's partner city, a development town deep in the desert on the fringes of Israeli society. They looked up at the same stars their ancestors did. They toured the old city. They prayed with community they did not know they had. They heard pop music infused with liturgy and ate the fresh fruits that were the same fruits used for sacrifices at the temple. They heard from a founder of Birthright tell them Judaism is not a religion, but a peoplehood, a connection. At Mount Sinai, when the Israelites are given Torah from on high, they respond, Na'aseh v'nishma, we act and we hear. The students heard me say, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'Zeh, and then they acted on it. We, the Jewish people, need experience, and we, the Jewish people, need teachers. We need people who have authentic connections to Judaism, and authentic does not mean following the letter of every single law or knowing how to quote word and verse. Authentic means Jewish people who are wholeheartedly committed to their identity. They know what it means to take responsibility for their own tradition because they engage in it. They disagree with it. They understand it. They live it. The students on Hillel's Birthright trip were able to engage in cheshbon hanefesh, to account for their soul. They did not just learn the words, they learned the deeds, na'aseh v'nishma. They transformed themselves from individuals on a trip to a community on pilgrimage. That is the experience of learning. Hey, Rabbi, Ron got into a fight. Click. I waited anxiously. The first bus returned, not Ron's bus. My nails were nubs by this point. I got a WhatsApp message from Ron. Hey, Rabbi, when we're back, we need to talk. My nubs became nubs. The bus finally pulled out, and out bounded the most triumphant group of AEPI bros the world has ever known. Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh, Rabbi, one bro proclaimed. We did it. I learned from Ron and the staff what had transpired. 2 men in the shuk had threatened a young woman on our program. Many of our participants stepped up to help. Ron was physically confronted by one of the threatening men who even attempted to steal his firearm. Ron helped the girl. The threatening men were neutralized nonviolently. The onlooking AEPI bros did not escalate, and everything ended peacefully. They returned to the hotel with Torah on their lips. I've never been more relieved. Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bezeh tells us that we need to take responsibility for our Judaism and for the Judaism of our community and for the Judaism of all the world. It is a tall task, but we can do it. We can teach when we find our authentic connection with Judaism grounded not just in our tradition, but in our lived reality. We can learn when we have the space and support to name the world as we see it and change the things we cannot name. We can take responsibility for ourselves and others. The students of our birthright trip heard the words, saw the connection, and then made the choice to etch them across their souls. They may forget me. They may forget the trip itinerary or the meals they ate, but they will never lose their connection, because they learned that that connection is a part of them, if only they hold it close, na'aseh v'nishma. May this be a year of being both learners and teachers. May this be a year of responsibility and accountability. May this be a year of naming the world. May this be a Shana Tova Umetuka, a new year marked by us, and a sweet year not only on our lips, but on our souls. May our souls be written by the words we name, and may they be inscribed in the book of life on high and the book of living here with us. Gamar Chatima Tova, may you be sealed well in the book of life. Shana Tova.
Rabbi Cook, I do not think those students are going to forget you, actually, number one. Number two, Yasher Koach, what a beautiful, beautiful words of Torah for all of us today. Thank you so much for that and for being with us and for being our teacher and